Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Butting Heads with myself, Paul Blameyer, LabWorks Vapes, and David G.
Hey,
Hi.
Paulie.
How are you?
Getting better, thanks. I'm been nursing a bad cold with some lung issues and, the consequences from smoking for 30 years, but that's okay. Who gives a shit? People don't care about smokers anymore out there, apparently, in your government and my government. And so what are you going to say? You can bitch and complain all you want, but the problem is that when nobody cares or not enough people care, you tend to start trying to fix things yourself, and then you get all skewed up and crazy and, like I am. I'm crazy. I'm a crazy man.
I think some of the time I'm also a little bit crazy as well, but I think that goes with the territory.
You think?
Yeah.
You think? I think that ship sailed a while ago, Paulie.
Yeah, thanks for that one, Dave.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Right.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Let's just jump straight in, and I'd like to hear your reactions on what our South Australian government has been throwing down. Oh, no, he's already got the sunnies on. He means business today, guys.
Well, I got the sunnies on because I've had this head cold. I've got this lung issue, and I get these lights on in here, and I've got such a headache from all the stupid meds they're giving me. But it's got me in a position where I can speak freely about what answers you're looking for your questions, because I really don't have answers. I just have opinions, of course. But I'm pretty disgusted with the whole smoking, vaping, World Health Organization, FDA, THRA. I'm just ATHRA. I'm just over it. I'm at a point now where you and I talk about this. We can talk about this ad nauseum. We could talk about it every day. And what they are is basically opinions based on information that we get. It's either news, fake news, real news, lies, misinformation, media bias, cover up, lack of transparency, underplaying the benefits of certain things that we know in this world are capable of enhancing the quality of people's lives. And we're just bimbos, you and I. We don't have degrees. We don't have letters after our name. We don't have, PhDs, and we're not masters of public health, and we're not lawyers, and we're just people who have a passion for other people, and it's dwindling very quickly because I got to tell you the truth. I'm starting to love animals more than I like people, and the people that we have to deal with every day in the news, on social media, hearing about what's happening in, South Australia and the rest of the country within the next 12 months, banning the online sales of vaping products. And, it's just the most ludicrous and absurd thing, but I know why it's happening. And in A Billion Lives, I said, nobody cares. I did correct that many times since I did The Billion Lives. I did correct it to where it's not enough people care, and I stand by that today. Not enough people care about this to, get so angry and so pissed off and so adamant about what muckety mucks are doing to their citizens, whether in the form of public health or, in your case, Greg Hunt, who's not even a doctor, who's in charge of your health ministry, Scott Gottlieb over here at the FDA, and Mitch Zeller, and all these people who were appointed by Donald Trump and other politicians. And I believe that Scott Gottlieb over here is very similar to your Greg Hunt and your Simon Chapman and then your Attila Dankos and all the other people who are involved in, in the world of public health and taking care of their communities. It's all bullshit, okay? It's about money. It's about who's padding their wallet. It's about who's got there first in form of lobbying. Lobbying here in the United States is probably a little bit different than lobbying in Australia. I don't think you have the kind of lobbying efforts that we have with either gun control or big pharma or big tobacco or alcohol. I don't know that much about Australia to compare, but I do know that we are so far removed from reality in this country that unfortunately what happens here spreads around to the rest of the world, because we are supposed to be the greatest nation in the world, and at one time maybe we were, but we're not anymore. With what's happening with the World Health Organization, who's trying to ban vaping in 180 world countries, we got research and science that we could talk about till the cows come home. So there's no real answer to the question about what's happening in Australia. I just know that it's corrupt, it's collusion, there's complicity, there's fraud going on, there's lack of transparency, and people are getting rich and wealthy off of it. Just like our politicians here, Paul. We had Nancy Pelosi come into government, a long time ago as a senator and working in, as the House Majority Leader. And she's now worth close to $200 billion. How do you get wealthy in politics if you don't, if you're not on the take, And so every politician that I'm suspicious of, and that goes from either side. I'm not Republican, Democrat. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a leftist. I'm not a rightist. I'm not a conservative. I just think that we're so screwed up in this world anymore that I feel bad for my kids and your kids and the next generation coming up. But what's happening in Australia is despicable. It's harming people. It's killing people. And I think that if we don't get a handle on it somehow with either civil disobedience in such a way that the media sees that we even care, they're just going to push us off like the redheaded stepchildren, push us in the corner and say, well, they're not yelling, screaming, ranting, raving. They're not protesting. They're doing little rallies here and there. They're doing little shows here and there. Until you start calling the people what they are, and that is frauds, corrupt politicians, corrupt government workers who are on the take, getting money. And that goes for even within the vaping industry. And we have it here in the United States. The vaping industry here in the United States is, $7.5, $8 billion industry supposedly. We're supposed to have 10 million vapors, and maybe some of them dual use and are smoking as well as vaping. But we're a multi-billion-dollar industry. We talk about Juul all the time. I don't even want to talk about them anymore. I don't want to talk about Gottlieb anymore because he's going to do what he's going to do, and there's no amount of ass kissing to Gottlieb. There's no amount of fly-ins to Washington, D.C. There's no amount of roundtable meetings that are going to be effective in getting Gottlieb to change his mind. But I do have to say this, and I will back up. I've lost friends in the last few weeks over the fact that they disagree with my lack of the feeling that I have that I'm ready to give Scott Gottlieb a hug, for what he's trying to do. I don't want to give him a hug. He's not ready for my hug. I don't trust him, okay? I think he's in a sticky wicket. I think he's got himself caught, by the short hairs. I think he's got to do certain things, and I think he's playing the Juul in the Imperial Tobacco Phantom distribution. My Blue, I think he's playing those Trojan horses strategically. Ever hear the game Stratego over in Australia?
Yep, I did.
It's a battle of wits. It's how you maneuver your pawns and how you maneuver your smaller ships and how you maneuver. It's like chess. You put your pawns out in front to be decimated. And that's all we are. We're a bunch of pawns now that will, go down. We'll be decimated. We'll be, taken under, and then the big guns will, shoot off their stuff, and big dogs eat first. And that's what's happening in Australia, in my opinion. We already got vaping, being developed in Australia under the guise that it's going to be government controlled. It's going to be, with a prescription. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I say something that's wrong, Paul, you got to correct me.
No, we currently do need a prescription to have nicotine here. You're meant to have
writing, and doctors are writing those scripts, right?
Yeah, but you walk into your regular GP, your general practitioner, and you ask them for a prescription for nicotine. Some of them don't know what the hell you're talking about, and they just look at you well, how about you go to the chemist or you go to your convenience store and you buy yourself some patches or some gum or a spray instead of actually, you trying to help me here, and you give me, a prescription for nicotine so I can import it, so I can add it to my e-liquid.
Right.
The question that I've got for you is, do you think the laws that the South Australian government is starting to roll out here, do you think that Gottlieb and the US government will take a page out of this playbook and then put it forward into also regulating or doing the same as us with online sales bans of vaping products?
Absolutely. I've said this since 2014. I haven't done my blog, the davidgmodelcitizen.com blog for almost a month now. I'm so disgusted with everything here that I can't put myself in a position to put myself on air, to go live, to have a discussion with you or Kevin Crowley or any other one of my guests that I would want to bring on, because I don't know who to believe anymore. I believe in my own gut. I believe in Kevin Crowley. I believe in you. I think we've researched things enough to where we know what we're talking about. But again, the devil is in the details. The answer to questions are depending upon who you're talking to at the time, because opinions are like assholes. We all got them, and we all got nostrils and we all got opinions, and it depends on how you feel. I mean, I have some friends that I just met in the last 6 or 7 weeks when I had some issues with, some people out in the West Coast regarding, the $13 million coming in from RJ Reynolds. And I met some friends and they came to my aid, and they looked out for me. And then because I have a different opinion based on the outcome of what Gottlieb was trying to do when everybody was, praising the fact that Juul is now pulling all of their flavors from convenience stores and gas stations. I was not ready to hoot and holler, and everybody's saying, well, this guy's a hero now. He's not trying to save shit.
No,
I mean, Gottlieb.
No, he's got his own agenda, and that's becoming very, very clear, even to people around the world. And
and go ahead.
The other part that I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to bring it to everyone's attention now, Dave and I have been working on a project privately, and we've been passing information backwards and forwards. And what we've found is a very large co-packer and manufacturer on the west coast of the United States now, and it's quite clear, if you have a look at their website, everything is blue, 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 blue. And then you have a look at their actual staff. There's even a gentleman sitting on their board from Fontum, which to me tells me one thing and one thing only, that this company now is either being run by Imperial or owned by Imperial, or they're in bed with Imperial, and the company that I'm talking about is Molecule. Mm-hmm. And it was quite disgusting when we found and we actually dug a little deeper. There was a lot of very large liquid brands manufactured by this company, and they still are, as far as I know. But when you go to their website and you actually look, and you see blue packaging everywhere and every other name stripped out from the website, that tells me something. And it tells me something quite scary. Mm-hmm. What's your opinion on that one?
Well, first of all, I'm not scared of it. I expect in 2014, 15, and 16 to play out how big companies were going to probably sell out. And I obviously got my first taste with the Von Earl debacle, when I was the face of Von Earl and they sold to Imperial in July of 2017. I wasn't indicting them for that. It's capitalism. That's what, businesses do. They buy and sell and move on. And the problem that I always had with the vaping industry is it's just that it was just so accepted, because for years, I've been doing this since 2009. Okay, I've got almost 10 years doing the vaping thing, 30 years in the tobacco industry. And, since 2009, we have always claimed that, the FDA cannot regulate, vaping, as a cessation device. They cannot regulate it as a medical device. Vaping is not tobacco. Vaping is not everywhere you went. Vaping is not tobacco. Vaping is not tobacco. And then all of a sudden, vaping is now being owned by tobacco. I mean, you talk about a double conflict of interest here. So that's what I predicted. I predicted that people like Juul will be bought out by big tobacco. People like Von Earl will be bought by Fontum, owned by Imperial. I do know that right now, many of the manufacturers that Molecule were making product for and packaging for are now going to be a part of the Fontum distribution under the auspices of Imperial Tobacco. I believe that that's a predictable, it's not an indictment. Molecule can sell whoever they want to. The problem is it's the lack of transparency in the way it's done. It's done in secret. It's done in private. Negotiations are being held all over Shenzhen, China. Negotiations are being held in many parts of the world where you're growing tobacco now, and you're also getting nicotine either through synthetics or through natural processes. I just don't like the lack of transparency that people like you and me, who are the people who vape a little. I vape very little. I'll be honest with you. I don't vape a whole lot because of my COPD and my emphysema. I quit smoking before vaping was even a gleam in my daddy's eye, so to speak. I quit smoking in 1980, 88 and 89. I struggled for 7 or 8 years. Would I have loved to have vaping as a part of my protocol to quit? Yeah. I didn't have it, so I struggled, quit. So finally, in 2006, 7, and 8, we found a concept that was going to be positively great for smokers who are trying to quit. And then, of course, it was working. Even though the little e-cigarettes were shitty, crappy, as Oliver Kershaw would say, it was garbage. The blue and the e-cigs and the cigalikes, but we developed very quickly, and I have no problem with people who are going to sell out to big tobacco because we postured ourselves to do that. You get yourself to the trough, you start getting, in line with a good product, a product that's going to be successful with your clients and your customers, and you start selling millions and millions and millions of them, just like Von Earl did. Von Earl came over into this country from Austria, in 2016, basically. Didn't even hit the market till April of 2016. And then I became attached with the Von Earl people who were then in business with Molecule Labs, and I know all the players. They're all very nice people. They're not horrible, evil people. They're just business people who, they come from a business engineering background. Mike Rauch came from a background of, what his business was, very successful. He didn't need to get into vaping. He just saw that it was the wave of the future, just like Gunther Hoffert did from Von Earl, who got his money from Swarovski crystals and mining over in Austria, and they came up with these wonderful engineering techniques, just like Pax Labs did with Juul. And I'm talking about Adam Bowen and Kevin Burns and James Fonsi, I think is his name. I may have got his last name wrong, but I'm all for capitalism, but not at the risk of taking away a product that was initially and intentionally brought into this country to help smokers quit smoking. That's the problem I have with anybody who's not going to sit down in a forum and discuss what your goals are. You want to sell for $18 billion? You want to sell like, Blue sold to Lorillard, back in return to 2010 for $12 million or $120 million. Now the numbers are so exorbitant. We're talking about Juul having a value of close to $30 billion when it's sold to big tobacco. And so if Molecule wants to come in and take over and do their website with all the My Blue, which is a redesigned Von Earl that had already been registered with the PMTA and with our federal government before the 2016 deadline of August 8th, sure, they should have the right. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is keeping it quiet to where everybody else is on the outside looking in, wondering what the heck they're doing, scratching their asses and saying, where do I fit in here in this big picture of monopolies and control? That's what I don't like. I don't like government takeovers like the FDA came in, or like the government came in and with the master settlement agreement and started, dictating what states will do. You can no longer sue big tobacco. You can no longer ban tobacco from being sold. When those kinds of things get snuck in the 12th hour to get attorney generals in the United States of America with 46 states who said you have 72 hours to decide if you want billions of dollars over the next 25 years, but you're going to have to sign a waiver that says you will never sue big tobacco. I think that's just corrupt. It's against everything that our Constitution stands for in this country, and I think I'm afraid that that's what Australia is setting itself up for, not really knowing how your Constitution works in Australia. But I can tell you this right now, if any law professor, and I'm not even anywhere near college graduate, okay, but if we got some lawyers out there and if we have a compact clause in this country that says you cannot You cannot, according to the Constitution, enter into any other agreement with any other state, which is what the master settlement was in 1998. They had 72 hours, 46 states, because the first four signed off on their own. They sued the tobacco and they got their money: Mississippi, Florida, Texas, and Minnesota. The remaining 46 states and territories had 72 hours to accept billions and billions and billions of dollars without congressional approval. That's the key. And I'm not even smart, and I know this, and I can't get a lawyer to even look at this, and Alan Dershowitz or any other attorney to say, hey, let's fight this, because everybody's so damn afraid of big tobacco, big pharma. But you know what? Dave Gerlitz, the former Winston man, isn't afraid. You know, I could say what I want because I am autonomous enough to where nobody gives a shit about who I really am.
Do you think with the advent of vaping and vaping becoming so popular in the US, this has also upset Apple?
You're breaking up. Could you repeat that? You were breaking up. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry. Do you think that the advent of vaping has also upset the MSA?
Of course. Absolutely. There's no question about it. You know, right now let's just talk about that for a minute, if you don't mind. When the 46 states signed onto the MSA, okay, they were going to get over $200 billion. It was the numbers that they push around are like $246 billion, okay? But the first $40 billion went to Mississippi, Texas, Florida, and Minnesota, okay? So then the other states said, hey, we want some of that money, okay? So they settled on a difference of $206 billion. So $206 billion and 40 is $246 billion. That's where that number came from what I was told. And I sat in on some of these meetings, okay? $246 billion will be divvied up. And think about it, $246 billion in the course of one decision, or paid out over 25 years or even in perpetuity. Well, all these states signed on and said, shit, yeah, they had unbalanced budgets. They needed new equipment. They needed new computers in the early 2000s. So they got all this free money, basically, is what it was. And the tobacco companies didn't get upset because they just raised the price of cigarettes 48 cents a pack across the board to make up that $246 billion. So they didn't lose a dime, okay? So now the states took that money and they put it into bonds. Okay, they put them into 10-year bonds that they would get all the money up front, and they would be able to spend the money to do whatever they wanted for it. You know, and most of them used it for everything but prevention of tobacco illness, cessation devices or alternatives. You know, Clean Indoor Act bill. So they used the money horribly, and now 10, 12 years later, the states have to pay these bonds back. And there's no money to pay it back. So what do? They raise the price of tobacco taxes in their states at 30 cents, 80 cents, $1.50, just like New York did. And now a pack of cigarettes in New York City is $15 or $14.50 a pack. So the only ones that keep getting run over by the fucking bus, okay, is the smoker. And then the smoker finally has an alternative showing 60 to 70% effectiveness to get off of these stinky ciggies. Okay, and they get their life back without any government support, without a control group, without a support group, without a grant, and then they're trying to take it away because they're afraid. So do I see things happening over in your parts of the country? Yeah, but it depends on what your Constitution says and how pissed off your citizens get. If your citizens just sit back and say, well, big government's the big brother, and they're going to tell us what to do, then shame on you. You deserve what you get. In this country alone, in the United States, I am now in a position, okay, where at 69 years of age, having been the Winston guy, knowing what I do know, and I do study a lot, I do read a lot. I'm not one of these guys that just was a reviewer 6 or 7 years ago who was a smoker, and then he or she became a reviewer on YouTube because YouTube became a big part of our society, and immediate gratification. Somebody was saying they like butterscotch over blueberry, or blueberry over this device, or this coil over that cotton, built, mod. I didn't do any of that. I never got a dime. I never wanted to. All I wanted to do was learn about a concept that can save lives. And now you're about 5 years behind us, Paul. Your state, your government right now is just trying to decimate and help people die prematurely. And if you don't have a rise up over in Australia because you're pretty modern. Australia is pretty. I've been there, okay, and I think what you're allowing to happen, not you personally, but your citizenry is allowing to happen. It's that they're coming in stealthily, and they're taking away every freedom and every right that a smoker, just like in our country, every smoker here in this country, in the United States, is held accountable for a lifetime addiction to nicotine and to smoking because they were enticed and encouraged and lured and tricked and targeted and marketed with $14 billion worth of advertising. It's no different than it is in Australia, and now we're paying the price, and that's shameful.
There is no difference here in Australia. The South Australian government and Stephen Wade, who is the SA Health Minister, by the way, he's a lawyer. He's another one that's not a doctor.
Like Greg Hunt?
Yeah, both of them both come from the legal profession. Both of them are not doctors. They take advisement. The Therapeutic Goods Administration here, or the TGA, they're the ones that would like to see vaping heavily regulated and possibly all the liquids created by pharma or regulations up the wazoo. So, your average Joe Blow has to go through so many different processes to actually get your hands on liquid that has nicotine in it.
Hey. When you just said that, are there heavier regulations on regular tobacco now, or has that stayed the same?
No, that's completely the same. The only regulations that we have here on tobacco are that you have to be over 18 to buy your cigarettes. They can be sold quite openly at a convenience store, supermarket, gas station, anywhere you want. And then what we classify as specialist tobacconists, it's all still available. The only thing that they do here is they keep jacking the price up of cigarettes to a level now where a regular packet of cigarettes is anywhere between $30 and $45 a packet.
Wow. In American, that's what, 20-something?
No, between 30 and 30, yeah, between $30 and $37 a packet US for a packet of cigarettes. But what we have here, we've got socialized health, we've got socialized benefit system, and what we're seeing now with the lower socioeconomic, we're seeing now people that are on a benefit from the government that are smokers, that they're actually going without food so they can buy their cigarettes.
Yeah, okay.
That's not on. That's nowhere not on at all. The black market here in cigarette sales is through the roof as well.
That's what I was going to ask you. How gray market or black market are you right now? It's probably exorbitant.
Oh, it's huge. There's all the illegal or the knockoff cigarettes that are brought into the country or imported into the country. You also have what we call chop chop, which is illegal tobacco, which is grown overseas, brought in and repackaged, but no one seems to know what's in it. And that's another part of the problem. The other thing that they're finding...
So you stop, you either pay $30, $35 for a packet of cigarettes, or you get it at black market and roll your own?
Yeah,
okay.
That's it. That's how it's really going here. The government won't listen. And recently, in the last 24 hours, there's been different points brought across. The Australian and New Zealand Psychiatry Association actually would like to see cigarettes or vaping, like cigarettes, to slowly die off, but they would like to see vaping products brought.
They're recommending it. Australia and New Zealand are both recommending it. It's the Psychiatry Association. Yeah. Okay.
It's catch-22 here though, because
so, again, Paul, at what point do you, I know you're upset about it, but at what point do you get the citizens of the Australian population rise up and say, we're not going to deal with this? Sorry about that. There goes my cat.
I love it.
At what point are your citizens going to rise up and say, we're not going to put up with it and demand some justice?
Okay.
When?
Tomorrow here in South Australia, between 11:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. on the steps of the South Australian Parliament. There is a march being put together. Athra and Savas Dimitriou have been putting together this march to just say to the government, look, enough is enough. You're not going to limit a life-saving technology. We want to sit down at the table, stop shutting us out from the conversations that we need to have, listen to the studies that are out there, that are real. It's not pseudoscience. We would like a fair chance to put our case forward. You have a lot of the medical fraternity now actually switching their minds, but we still have our old friend Simon Chapman has stuck his head up again, spouting off exactly what's come out of Gottlieb's mouth, stating that now we have an epidemic of vaping. Oh my God. Jeez,
Okay.
you know.
Well, who are your leaders over there? Who are, like we have over here? We certainly have Tony Aboud from VTA. We have Julie Westner and Alex Clark from CASA, and we have Safada, which is Mark Anton and Shell Hamill and Mike Runchy, and we got some pretty typical usual suspects. Okay, who are going to bat with Demetrius and Phil and myself and Fig Ramsey and several other really good people who are trying really hard to raise the level of. Who do you have besides yourself? Because certainly we can't count on Colin Mendelsohn, or can we?
Colin has been doing the best he possibly can.
Okay.
Attila was part of the NNA, the New Nicotine Alliance here in Australia. Attila's still working within the industry, but he's off on other side projects now. We then have
what kind of side projects?
He's
a physician,
organised.
Right?
But he's also organised a pod system, and he's the head of that company now.
Again, that's not an indictment because people are free to do what they want to do, but I think you need to know that. But the people that are out there at these rallies that you're going to have on Thursday, the 29th. Are these people that have a voice? Do they get some media following? They get somebody in the media that says, "Hey, we want to talk to X, Y, and Z," and plus yourself. I mean,
the problem is with the South Australian government is that when there was a change earlier this year, again, they changed the health minister, and now the gentleman that's in there has completely thrown all of the older negotiations out the window, and he's brought in this. He decided, no, it's just the same as Greg Hunt. Greg Hunt actually committed to doing a study on vaping.
I remember that. We talked about it a few months ago.
Right? But we still haven't heard a whisper out of his department as to when this is going to go forward, who the panel is that is actually going to go over all the data and give us the final
who do you rely on, Paul? Who do you rely on to get information with all your research and all the digging you do and connecting the dots and like I do here? I follow it very closely like you. I can't worry about the world. I worry about Australia because I think we're very, symbiotic. You're very modern. You're very positive about things. You got, health issues are a major concern supposedly. And obviously like vaping, in your country as well as my country, it's way down in the lower 40 where it doesn't come out unless a pod system blows up in your face and you got one device that blows up versus the 20,000 cell phones that blew up and nobody's talking about. So who do you look up to over there? Who can we count on and who can we, interview when I do my documentary and when I do my hopefully intelligence reporting to where I get information so the people of Australia as well as the United States can see what's happening globally? I mean, who do we talk to? Really, I'm asking that as a question.
Okay. There's one gentleman that I did a show with the other day. Sam Parsons, otherwise known as the Vaping Bogan. He's a YouTube reviewer.
Vaping Bogan?
Yeah.
B-O-G-A-N?
Correct.
Okay.
Him and I did a show the other day with Matt Cully and Chuck Allen. otherwise known as NorCal Sick Boy. And for the people that don't know who Matt Cully is, he's otherwise known as Suck My Mod. He's also another vape reviewer. I reached out to them. We had a roundtable discussion. We put a little bit of a video together, and I posted it on my channel. We're all at the crossroads here. Here in Australia, Sam and myself are the ones that have actually put themselves out there on media, social media, very much so, on YouTube, as much as we can to get the word out there as to what's going on here in Australia. The information that is being fed to the citizens here is a lot of rubbish. They're not getting the true information, the true data. It's not filtering down the channels. I've got friends that own vape shops here in Sydney, in Melbourne, and in Adelaide. They'd all be more than happy to sit down and tell you how the government has, pretty much put more restrictions on vaping than any other product here in the country. Alcohol, you can walk into a shop and you can buy a bottle of bourbon, or you can buy a carton of beer. Mm-hmm. You can walk into a convenience store and you can buy a packet of cigarettes. Sure, cigarettes have been put behind a closed door or a screen. It still doesn't matter. Right. You still have the right to walk into any of these and buy it.
Right, as you should vaping. Right.
Well, with what they're doing in South Australia, they're wanting to completely decimate an industry where roughly two-thirds of the big vaping companies, liquid manufacturers, and hardware distributors they want all the online sales wiped out. We're now seeing shop owners that both have brick and mortar and a very large online presence actually moving state so they can keep trading.
Right. Okay.
Which is it's really unfair. There's two companies, one South Australian based and one Victorian based, or Melbourne. Both of them have set up operations in New Zealand so they can actually supply nicotine ready nicked up liquids. The two companies are Vaporize, and the second company is Wick and Wire. Both of them have set up operations in New Zealand, and now they're sending nicked up liquids back into Australia. And for people to have to go down that pathway, it's unbelievable.
It's criminal, Paul. It's criminal, and it's the same thing happening here. I have a tendency right now to speak my mind, as you well know, and I don't see a whole lot of progress being made in the United States regarding successes of the FDA and Mitch Zeller and the tobacco control people, and it's going to continue. But right now we're at a point where your rallies are going to mean one thing. You're going to see either 100 people or 1,000 people show up, and that's going to be a pretty good barometer as to what your future holds. Because if you don't have people caring, if you don't have people upset with the fact that somebody in government who's getting wealthy, who's got a job, who's getting a paycheck every week, who may or may not have an addiction to, tobacco or opiates or pain meds or alcohol or whatever, when the government comes in and tries to dictate how someone can spend the rest of his or her life, when they were targeted by an industry which is now starting to rise up from the ashes. And I say that tongue in cheek. Tobacco companies are coming back in huge numbers, as far as looking like the good guy. They're coming back now by buying up the vaping devices and the hardware and the e-liquids and the systems that are going to put them back on the map, because as Kevin Crowley will tell you, and he's my go-to guy for information, and he's my buddy, just like you are, but when you have 20% of the American people who will continue to smoke cigarettes, because that's the Sinauer Amendment risk assessment. The Sinauer Amendment risk assessment is that 20% of Americans will always smoke. There's no question about it, whether you're a teen or whether you're an adult, And now on top of that, they're going to get 10 to 15% of the vapors who are no longer a part of the 35 to 40% of the smokers. Now they're going to vape, but they will now be controlled by getting products from R.J. Reynolds, Philip Morris, PMI, Altria, Imperial, Japan, and British American Tobacco. So that's what the discussion that you and I should have on a regular basis, but it's very hard. It's hard to remain positive when you constantly see the kind of shit that we saw this week in South Australia, and now you're telling me that it's already planned for the next 12 months to go countrywide, right? And
if it will roll out to the federal level here, and it will roll out across Australia. There's no two ways on it.
And people are just standing by and letting it happen. And that's what I'm trying to say to you. How do we get these people over in Australia without doing these shows where we start these conspiracy theories, which they aren't conspiracy theories. You and I know that. You and I have been name called. We've been watch list. We've been blackballed. We've been told that we don't know what we're talking about. And I started out this conversation with you tonight. A few weeks ago, people were very interested in what I had to say. But just because I totally disagree with the outcome of the FDA's announcement that Juul is now removing their flavors from the convenience stores, and somehow the FDA is not looking to be a hero here. They're caught in a crossfire. They are caught as to how to handle this, that they're going to come out smelling like a rose instead of smelling like a shit stick. Okay, so that's the game that they're playing with people, and I'm smart enough and you're smart enough. I just don't think people who are the normal citizens of our country, like the public, and I always say that we're going to win this in the court of public opinion, but I'm going to refer back to what I said before in A Billion Lives, and that is nobody cares. Because we got immigration, we got Trump, we got Pelosi, we got Byrd, we got all these other people, we got Greg Hunt, we got all these companies that are taking over, and we got juuling, and we got epidemics, and we got bacteria, and we got AIDS, and we got heroin, and with fentanyl, and so many distractions. But right now, the people that you and I like, and we refer to every day, we talk to, the common man, the common woman, we're trying to help them, and then we just get crapped on and thrown under the bus. Well, and I'm not indicting Molecule. I want to make sure that you understand that. I'm not indicting anybody who is looking to come up with a product that will help people quit smoking, okay? And I'll say it freely. I don't care if you use snus. I don't care if you use the Views or the Mark 10. I just don't like the way it's being played out. Be transparent. Tell us the truth. Let us decide who we want to support and not support. Let us know which organization is going to be best for my particular situation. I'm supposed to go down next week to Austin, Texas for SFATA. I'm supposed to go down and see some of the people of VTA, which is the Vaping Technology Association. Everybody's fighting everybody else. CASA's not doing this, and SFATA's not doing that, and ABA's not doing that, and MBS is doing this. And there's absolutely no harmony. Okay. And I think people are sick and tired of it. I am, because I'm at the point where I'm going to do what I do. And that's why the projects that I'm doing are independent of anybody else. And if people don't like me, that's okay too. But I'm going to give the information that'll at least let me put my head down on my pillow at night and say, at least I tried. Same thing with you. We got to make a living. We got to pay our bills. I'm sick as a dog the last 2 weeks with my lung infection and my diaphragm issues, but that's nobody's concern but mine, okay? And I'll deal with it. And I will travel when I can travel, and I will raise the level of awareness that havoc is being wreaked on the citizens of Australia, yourself, myself, and citizens of the U.S. So I think these programs are important. If you can get 100 people listen or 20 people listen, but we're not going to do anything grandiose until we start naming names. And I think we started to do that tonight. And I think we will continue to do that by telling you, I'm going to tell you that your politicians are corrupt as hell. Okay?
I know that all too well.
But I can say it because I don't live there. But from what I've seen, heard, and read, until I'm proven wrong, they are corrupt politicians who are trying to manipulate, and they're parasites sucking on the teat of society to where they can get wealthier and they can control, because ego is a fickle bitch, and when ego gets in and you feel like you're more important than the people you are there to represent, the Hippocratic Oath on that medical thing, you've heard of the Hippocratic Oath, right? First, do no harm.
Correct.
It's in the toilet. Okay. These people don't give a shit about doing that. They don't care about us. They just care about, what sort of standing they have within their circles while they grandstand and while they posture to where they can continue to make money. And I'm talking about Canada as well. They've been through it, and they're in the toilet in a lot of cases. And now cannabis is coming in and taking over, and it's putting the emphasis on cannabis and marijuana versus vaping, which has helped so many people. And we've proved it over 10, 11 years that vaping does work. It is the most successful alternative and viable alternative. And we can't get that word out because the media is not going to buy into it. It's just like our country here. I don't know if you know this, but over in Australia, but we have problems with Donald Trump here. Okay. The media doesn't like him. The media doesn't care for him. So that man can't do a damn thing. He can't go have a normal body function without somebody saying he did it wrong. And then there's people who just are just so angry in the fact that Hillary lost. And, we've just become so distracted in this country that I have to concentrate on two things. And that's why I say I like animals better than people. I'm not a real fan of people anymore, and I just want to help you guys, and I want you to keep telling your story, and I wish you well on the rally. But I think we need to expose like I wanted to do. And I've got some finalizations that I'm doing this weekend in Texas when I go down there for these conferences. And, people can just tell me to go home, if they don't like what I say. And I'm fine with that because I'm above the opinions that people have of me. So my blog will start again probably in another week or so once I decide that I'm healthy enough without hacking up a lung, while I'm talking, and I can talk for an hour and a half. But I do have things to say, and I know stuff, and I want people like you to have the opportunity to educate your people who don't have a clue what's going on because no one's telling them other than yourself, and you need to keep doing what you do, Paul, and I'm proud of you. Thank you for your efforts.
I'm doing the best I possibly can here, Dave. The only other person that's willing to speak out is Sam Parsons. Like Bogan, every single video that he does, he will put out at the very start of each video, he talks about advocacy. It's not only here in Australia. He talks about advocacy in the United States and around the world. And he also calls to action wherever it's needed. Him and I are good friends. We talk quite a lot. But here in Australia, until we can actually prove to the people and to the government that what we have found, and 30 years of myself smoking, I'm off the cigarettes now completely. I vape. That's it. Game over. I don't want to be told by a government, oh, well, that's really bad for you because it's got diacetyl in it. It's made, we had the head of the TGA come out on a 60 Minutes program that I was part of, and he said openly, and this went to air, I'll send you the clip and you'll be there just shaking your head. He actually came out and he said, well, one of the main proponents of vaping liquids is actually ethylene glycol. And I said, doesn't taste like antifreeze to me. So obviously you've got your glycols completely mixed up, and you're the head of the Therapeutic Goods Administration. Obviously the money that you spent going to university and doing what you did was obviously wasted because you have no understanding of chemistry.
What do you call somebody who graduates chemistry or medical college, at the bottom of his class? What do you call them?
I actually call them a doctor, but I call them but I still call them asshat.
Well, asshat. But I'm saying if you graduate at the bottom of your class, you're still a doctor. Whether you're at the top of the class, that's where we are. We got a lot of people in this country who are posturing. They're stepping up to the trough, to get their grants, to get, you know what it's like to get like Stanton Glantz. Remember that?
Oh,
he just got 20. He just got
again
20,
more money.
More money. A month ago, he got a $20 million grant, and now he's got 2 or 3 assault charges for sexual harassment out there and at UCSF. And this is the kind of thing that people are just so disgusted with, and I am too. I don't even want to listen to it. I turn it right off. But what I want to do, I want to make it unique enough to where, people like you and me who are considered wackadoodles, we're nutcases, we're out of control. I wear that as a badge of honor. I don't need the World Health Organization Gold Medal of Honor pinned to my chest to have a badge of honor because those people are worthless. Okay. And I will tell that to whoever is in charge of the World Health Organization. I want to work I really, 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 really want to work with the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World at some point, because even though they got $80 million a year coming for 12 years, I think 1 year is up, they got $1 billion to where they can tell their story. I really want to work with them. I could deal with those people because they're honest. It's keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. They take $1 billion. They're not going to be controlled by PMI, Philip Morris International. Derek Yock and Charles Gardner and his staff, or the staff of people he has in putting information out, they don't have to be controlled because they have pride, okay, and they have passion, and they're in this business for the right reasons. And I think Derek Yock is probably one of the best people out there that can handle this. Now, was I doubtful and suspicious in the beginning? Of course, because that's just human nature. I'm always suspicious of big tobacco getting involved in anything that's supposedly helping the people that they enticed and encouraged and lured and tricked and hooked on very early on. But I also have to grow up and say, hey, things change. I've changed. Why can't they? Will they? Probably not. But if they've offered $1 billion to get information out there to people in third world countries who are now, smoking at 60% in Indonesia and other parts of the world, and now we're shipping more tobacco and we're growing more tobacco and it's not doing anything to improve the quality of your life, then we have to work with these people. And I'm willing to do that. Just like there's bipartisanship in our country. Democrats have to work with Republicans. Republicans have to work with Democrats. But I don't think there's a whole lot of knowledge going on in Australia that this kind of crap is happening regarding the nation's #1 cause of premature death and disease in Australia. So that's what we have to work on, you and me and your other friend, Mr. Parsons. Is that his name?
Yeah, like that's him.
Let's get him on our show. Let's talk to him. Let me get educated too, because I could be wrong. I don't think I am. I know I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong in the U.S.
No,
Sam Parsons?
No, yeah, Sam he's one of the good guys. And I'll invite him on to the next show.
I don't think we'll get Attila Danko on, and I'm sure we won't get Colin Mendelsohn on because they don't.
Colin could be.
Well, you set it up.
That's a hopeful.
That's how
actually what I'd like to do is get yourself, myself, Sam, and Colin all in the one conversation. That would be a very interesting show. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to indict anybody based on suspicions. We have enough of that fake news shit going on here in this country, okay? And you probably have it over there as well. You don't know what to believe anymore. But if you hear from the horse's mouth, and Colin is a great, intelligent man from what I've heard. Attila Danko is very smart. He and I are associates from our Billion Lives past days. And these are the people who, I don't want to talk to Greg Hunt or Simon Chapman, and Simon Chapman still owes me money, all right? And he still owes me a dinner, which I'll never probably collect on, and that's okay. But I would love to talk to these people over there because that's how I learn. I don't learn just by reading something that's probably fake or false or, it's been, embellished or, I don't want to guess at anything anymore. I want to see what these guys think, how they feel, what's going on behind closed doors, and let's expose it and bring it out in the open and let people, rise to the occasion all on their own because they're big boys and big girls. They put their big girl panties on, their big boy panties on, and make a decision based on facts. So that's what you and I should do, and that's where we should end it tonight, I think. And there's one other person I'd like to invite to the conversation as well, if he ever gets the chance, and that'd be Clive Bates.
Oh, Clive. Yeah, Clive would probably do it because I'm sure he's pretty well, celebrating the fact that he's from a country that is now embracing vaping, and I'm sure he would love to use some of his expertise to help out a country like yours. Ours, I don't know where we're going with ours, but I think yours has a chance. If you get to your 30 million people or however many people you have in Australia, how many people do you have in Australia? Do you know?
Yeah, it's between 26 and 30 million.
Okay, so I'm not far off. No. But I just think that, when you have a country like yours, if New Zealand can do it, you certainly should be able to do it. Get this riffraff out of there, which I thought we were going to do 4 or 5 months ago when you had a change of parliament and, change of the government, and we thought we had a shot. But at this point now, I'd like you to set it up whenever you want. Give me 24 hours notice, and I'll be available. All right, yeah. Paul?
I'll do the best I possibly can. I'll reach out to as many people as
luck with your rally.
I can. Thank
you.
Good
luck with your rally, and don't forget to put some makeup on so you look pretty for the meeting.
I won't be heading down to it, but I'm going to be hosting a live feed from the rally from a couple of people that are down there.
All right, will you keep me posted?
We're going to try and push it out to as many people around the world as we possibly can.
All right. Well, you keep it posted. Get this up and running as soon as you can. Let's do it as often as you want, as long as it's going to be effective. And, I love you guys over there, and anything we can do to help each other, let's stay in touch. All right, buddy?
Always will. Thanks,
have a good
Dave.
night.
Will do.
Bye-bye.